NATO foreign ministers are focusing on ramping up military assistance for the war-torn Ukraine, such as air defense systems and ammunition. Diplomats acknowledged supply and capacity issues and also discusses non-lethal aid. At the meeting in Bucharest, the NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg told the conference that the NATO is prepared to defend every inch of its territory from attack. He emphasized the alliance is not party to the conflict, but did say NATO members are providing unprecedented support to the country so it can defend itself from Russia. Let's talk more on this lingering Russia-Ukraine war. I have a global affairs analyst, Catch Ononuju, who is joining me via Zoom. Thank you so much for joining us on World Now. Let's begin by talking about NATO, which has actually pledged unyielding support for Kyiv from the alliance, saying it will not back down from providing aid to the country. What's your reaction to these, to start with?
Thank you. The current noises are necessary, but concrete actions need to be taken. Every noise you hear right now is in reaction to the inevitability of the Russian winter. The winter is coming, and we know about the history of war within that region. Wars mostly get affected by the weather, and it's coming again. So I think what we should do right now is to escalate what I've seen the U.S. trying to do with Russia. Get them to sit down and start talking. Set some positions for peace. To continue to allow Ukraine to suffer, go deep down into this will not work, because already we've seen what the Russians are doing. They are targeting specific electricity infrastructure across Ukraine. We do not yet have the mechanism in Ukraine's hands to dissuade or stop the Russians from this targeted hits at sensitive Ukrainian infrastructure for electricity and the other supplies they will need to make it through this winter. That is where the crisis is right now.
Well, half of Ukraine's energy infrastructure is actually either damaged or destroyed, and it's already having knock-on effects on the health system, on the people's, the people's health as well. What's your reading of the conditions the Ukrainians are finding themselves?
Well, as I said earlier, we have come to the time when NATO should actually sit down with Ukraine and think about ending this war. There is no way they will win. You have a war in which if Ukraine throws bomb, it must land on Ukrainian territory. If Russia throws any missile, it must land on Ukrainian territory. What we're simply doing is prolonging the devastation of Ukraine. This actually was what Russia intended to do in the first place, to damage it in such a way that it wouldn't be available for anyone who thinks they could come and use Ukraine as a station for, in their own words, for long-term attempt at containment of Russia. It's not feasible. Let's reverse back to the provisions of the Monroe Doctrine and see how Ukraine will understand that it is in its own interest to save what it can do right now, because there are no intentions to change the scope of where Ukraine can attack going forward. If Ukraine shoots any weapon, it must land on Ukrainian territory. If Russia shoots any weapon, it must land on Ukrainian territory. Now we're talking about up to 50% of its infrastructure already damaged. The Russians will further depreciate it, and the minute they get to that point of 70% depreciation of Ukrainian infrastructure in regards to electricity, water supply, and other things, we will likely roll into something very catastrophic. It is good now that we stop that. Please, it's been going on since February, and the much expected Ukraine will win hasn't happened. Yes, Russia has had a grounding, but definite smashing of Ukrainian infrastructure. Look at where we are. From the beginning, nothing. Now we're talking about 50% of critical infrastructure down. And now we have a targeting system that seeks to take away all those infrastructures. earlier we can now look for a way for peace, the better for everyone. I don't see a winner in this. I think the experiment has been seen, but no, let's go back to the protocols of the Monroe Doctrine and find Russia an acceptable guarantee that it shall not be threatened by NATO's advancements towards the Far East.
Makes sense. Trying to expand in your thoughts as regards your concern about what is going on in Ukraine. There have also been several rounds of similar waves of missile strikes, basically designed to cripple Ukraine's power infrastructure, to plunge the country into darkness. Do you think Russia is succeeding in breaking the will of the Ukrainian people?
You can talk about the wheels are already broken. Ukraine is already destroyed. Russia is already doing very badly and killing people there, killing infrastructure. There is nothing like, do you think? You're asking what extent will the destruction of Ukraine get to before the world will agree to now have sense? There is no competition for who is stronger. This is an artillery-intensive war, and Russia does have the edge. Forget the propaganda. There's nothing anybody will gain. Very soon, we may not be able to recognize Ukraine again. We are talking about 50%. I foresee 70 to 80% degradation of Ukrainian infrastructure as we know it, and the things that made it to exist in us as a state. This is the time for us to stop this. Ukraine cannot win. No way. There's no way. There's no way it can win the war. It's over. Russia has proven its point. Fine. The West has tried, and it has been discovered by Russia, and now we have a reaction, which is a war. Let us now stop the war and think about peace and start allowing Ukrainians to come back home. It's okay being a refugee for an entire year. Let us build the protocols that will guarantee the safe return of Ukrainians, no matter where they are. There is nothing to be proven anymore. Russia has won the war. We agree. Let's now start talking about peace.
Right. Well, so many issues to actually, talk about in this Russian-Ukraine war. But then we'll continue to see how NATO aid and all the things that other foreign countries are talking about in helping Ukraine to get out of these, doldrums will definitely, will be far-reaching enough. Global Affairs analyst Kash Ononuju, thank you so much for your insights this time.
Thank you for having me.